After DeepSeek, Indian social media has just one question. If China can, why not India? Why can't we build a Facebook or Google or ChatGPT? Well, there isn't one single factor. It's a combination of many. Number one, of course, is money, and I'm not talking about bigger budgets, I'm talking about better budgets. We do not allocate enough money to research and development. Just look at the numbers. The US spends 3.4% of its GDP on R&D, research and development. China spends 2.4% of its GDP. Israel spends 5.7%. What about India? Only 0.6% spending. This is simply not enough to create breakthroughs. And it's not just the government. India's private spending on R&D is also less. Private companies make up just 36% of our total spend. In China and the US, it is higher than 70%, 7-0. So we need the government and the private sector to coordinate to put more money on research and development. That's the first point. The second factor is the market. It was explained pretty well by Sridhar Vembu. He is the chief scientist at Zoho, which is an Indian multinational company. Now, he says the Indian market is not protected, so startups are vulnerable. I'll give you a scenario. Imagine an Indian startup creating a homegrown Google. It's not perfect, but it's an alternative, and it is homegrown. What do you think will happen to it? Do you think Indians will ditch Google? Do you think they'll flock to this homegrown version? The answer is no. The startup will perish under competition from American tech giants. Their products are cheaper and well established, so they will push out the Indian ones. In fact, this is what happened with India's social media platform Coup. But something like this never happens in China. Their market is close to American tech companies, so the homegrown ones have wiggle room to fail, to improve, and to finally deliver. So it's not always about the quality of the product, it's also about the environment that they grow in. Which brings us to the final factor. India is already behind. AI is the cutting edge of technology. You had so many platforms leading up to it. You had the internet, you had semiconductors, you had mobile phones, you had smartphones and laptops. India is yet to succeed in any of those sectors. And once you fall behind, you stay behind. That's generally how technology works. But what if you skip some of those steps? What if you focus directly on new technologies like AI? Then you will need help from others. For example, AI needs specialized semiconductors. Virtually all of them are made by one US company called NVIDIA. And the US won't sell it to you. Washington has capped advanced chip sales. You can't buy as many as you like. Countries like India can only buy 50,000 chips by 2027. That is the upper limit. That is the cap imposed by the US government. And how much is India looking to buy? Right now, the plan is to source 10,000 chips, which is not a bad number. OpenAI trained ChatGPT on a similar number of chips. No reason India cannot do the same. The problem is the likes of OpenAI have unlimited access to chips. By the time we make ChatGPT, they will be a few steps ahead of us. So these are the three main factors holding India back: lack of research and development, competition from American firms, and a massive gap with the leaders. How do we turn this around? How did China do it? They anticipated the curb in chip supply, so China began stockpiling chips in advance. They're also making their own. The likes of Huawei use China-made chips. Apparently, they're quite good too. And all of this boils down to one thing: a national campaign. We keep hearing stories about US tech giants building out of basements. Well, that is just one part of the story. The US government was heavily involved in it. The CIA had its own venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. The Pentagon gave them contracts. That is how these tech giants flourished in the first place. In China, it's the same story. Chinese firms get billions in state subsidies. They have a closed market to use as a training field. We don't have any of that. So the need of the hour is a streamlined national mission, one that brings together all stakeholders: the government, the startups, the private investors, and the ordinary people. If not, we will be left on the sidelines in this race. We are calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send this special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Hindu live in. We're on a way to Tel Aviv. City measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office, Prime Minister Modi. Divyan.
we were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote effort. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 4.3 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.